Scorpio, this is your week ahead astrology forecast for May 16th to May 22nd, 2023. From Astrology Motivation by Born Without Boundaries. In this video, we're going to review the major planetary aspects and transits for this week and how they impact your natal sun. Now, you don't need a natal chart, but it's best to have one. It's really easy to get one. You can search it on any search engine, free natal chart. It'll pop right up, many websites that do it. All you'll need is your birth date, which you already have, your birth time, and your birthplace, all of which are on your birth certificate, and plug it in. It'll pop it out, and you'll have a natal chart. On your natal chart, you will see that your sun sits on one specific degree in the zodiac sign of Scorpio. If your sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Scorpio, you are Scorpio 1s because your sun is in the first decan of Scorpio, which is the first group of 10 degrees. If your natal sun sits between 10 and 19 degrees Scorpio, you're Scorpio 2s. And if your natal sun sits between 20 and 29 degrees Scorpio, you are Scorpio 3s. Don't worry if you don't have a natal chart. I will give you or provide the correlating dates. They are a little bit, they're not as accurate, but at least you'll have a general understanding. We're going to start really broad, Scorpio, with the aspects or transits that are impacting everybody. And then we're going to go into specifically what Scorpio should be paying attention to, all Scorpios. And then we're going to get into the decans. And I encourage you to watch the entire video because a lot of times these planets are transiting between decans. So what affects one of you in the beginning of the week will affect another of you toward the end of the week. So it all correlates. So let's get into the transits and how they impact everyone. We're going to have a new moon on May 18th, May 18th, 19th, depending on where you are on the globe, at 27 degrees Taurus. This is really interesting because if you remember last month, we had 2 new moons in Aries, which kind of flipped the switch for us, which means for the past 3 years before that, the new moons were coming in the beginning of the month, and then the full moons were coming toward the end. So we'd have a new moon, then we'd have a full moon, new moon, full moon. Now, because there was 2 new moons in Aries last month, we have now new moons toward the end of the month, which I actually kind of like because it feels like we're purging on the full moon. And then we have room to receive on the new moon. And I love this energy. So we have the new moon on May 18th, 19th, depending on where you are on the globe, because it's right there, at 27 degrees Taurus. On May 20th, okay, hold on, let's go back. On May 20th, Mars goes into Leo, which is actually something you guys should pay attention to because Mars is your traditional ruling dignitary. Always know where Mars and Pluto are. Pluto's not hard because it doesn't move that much, but Mars does. Mars is now transiting from Cancer, where it is very wishy-washy, into Leo, which is a much better energy for it. And then on May 21st, the Sun moves into Gemini. So Gemini season will begin then. Venus is also square to Chiron, which is not the easiest energy. It's going to impact Cancerians more than anything, just because Cancer is where Venus is. But Venus square Chiron could make everyone kind of feel like they're not good enough or have to work through or confront those issues of self-esteem or self-worth, just never feeling like you're enough, like you're beautiful enough, like people care about you enough. I did write this down. Any kind of injuries to how you look or feeling bad about your body, these are going to be exacerbated at this time. So even if there wasn't an injury, like a physical injury, people insulting you, people criticizing you, those feelings will really be made difficult at this point. A sense of an injury to your self-esteem, an injury to how you feel you're valued, or if you're worth it, or if you're beautiful at all. So that can cause a lot of trouble, but primarily that will be causing issues for Cancerians. The new moon in Taurus is at 27 degrees Taurus, which means this will impact you guys majorly. You saw the full moon a couple of weeks ago in Scorpio, which definitely had a huge impact on you guys. But because Taurus is directly opposite you, it is your opposite on the zodiac, a lot of you will actually be in opposition. A lot of your natal signs will be in opposition to this new moon. So it's something that we have to talk about, and we will be. Mars transiting into Leo will impact you guys too, because Leo is in a natural square to Scorpio. So that means that now you can be in a natural square to Mars. So you can feel a little bit more energy pulsating through you, impulsivity and hot-headedness, and that will be over the next 4 or 5 weeks. As Mars transits through Leo, it'll impact each of you, and we'll be discussing it. The sun moving into Gemini is an interesting energy. Why? Why is it an interesting energy? Gemini is in a natural quincunx or frustrating position to all of your natal suns. So it could just be like almost like I can't get things done quick enough kind of energy, which we'll be discussing as well. Let's go into the specific, Scorpio, about what you should be paying attention to this week. Though everything is, and I have my notes, guys, written down, and feel free to comment below. Absolutely, because I love to know how these energies are impacting you, how you're experiencing them. And you'll all experience them in different ways or in different areas of your life, but it's definitely something to be aware of. So Pluto is your is your modern ruler, and Pluto does not move very fast. It's not moved at all, actually. Pluto is still in Aquarius at 0 degrees. It is square to the north and south node, but this week it is still square to Jupiter. And last week we started to see that there was also an opposition to Mars. So Pluto and Mars are now in opposition, about to be in perfect opposition on May 20th. And of course, what does that mean? A lot of tension, especially for you guys, feeling like you can't get anything done quick enough, which could tempt you to be more ruthless, deceitful, like just get it done at any costs. This could also give the vibration off, even though you're not intending that or you're not doing that. People feeling like you're just way too intense. It will definitely intensify your feelings for everything, and you will not be taking any bullshit. That's essentially what it's going to be. Not that you do any other day, but there's a sense of even more so extreme, taking things to the extreme, acting out more often, being more pugilistic, more prone to not take no for an answer. Yes, you're right. It could be used as a really great thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It really just depends on how you keep a sense of yourself. When anything with Pluto and Mars, it is really, really essential to ground yourself in morality and integrity and remind yourself of integrity, because it's so tempting for anybody who's being impacted by it to forget about their integrity and just go after what they want. And that will eventually set up a lot of bad karma for the future. So whatever you win during these transits could eventually bring you down in the future, because you didn't stand in your truth, you didn't stand in your integrity. So it's just an extra challenge that you guys are going to have to be aware of. And I think, you guys are going to have to be aware of. Mars is opposite Pluto. It's also square to the nodes because it's opposite Pluto. This is really, yes, I think in terms of the energy, it could very well be setting you up to make major changes in your life and major breakthroughs. And that's wonderful. It's just, how are you doing it? Because it's always so tempting, especially with scorpionic energy, to tempt them into the darkness so that they get false happiness up front, and then on the backside come around and get slapped for it, because you've been tempted into doing things in a shady way, doing things in a deceitful or ruthless way. And if that is what happens, or anything that you've done that you've actually done in those very bad karma ways, this is when it could all catch up to you. This is when the shit could hit the fan. So it just depends on, do I stick to my integrity? Do I stick to my own self-control? Do I continue to be compassionate and empathetic? And if all those answers are yes, then this is actually going to be a very progressive time for you. But if it's no, and it doesn't mean that your whole life is going to be destroyed, just in those areas where you got tempted to do things so selfishly and so relentlessly that it did harm to somebody else so that you could get something good for yourself. Now, this isn't just something that impacts you. This could be impacting everybody, since this is the general astrology. But because it impacts both your ruling dignitaries, it will be harder on you. And yes, it's not always harder on Scorpios. It really isn't. This is just involving Pluto and Mars, two really, really huge energies, and there's no way that you're really going to be able to escape it. So this week, it's really, really important. Actually, for the next 2 weeks, it's really, really important to ensure that you breathe. Don't feel pushed. If anything makes you feel like, I'm never going to get it unless I do it now, shut up. That's what you got to say. Shut up. You're not allowed to say that. I'm going to breathe through this. I know God's got me. In other words, connecting to your faith, deeply rooting in faith and deeply rooting in the understanding that it is destined for me. So I don't have to do anything outside of my character in order to get it. What's mine is mine. And so faith is a real essential right now. And then we have the Mars is also... this is another thing. A square to Pluto. So this really isn't just Mars and Pluto and the nodes, is it? No, Jupiter's there sitting on top of the North Node. So it's like super combustible explosion. But it also gives me some optimism, because it means that, no, Jupiter wants you to move forward. And you should trust in that. It's Jupiter will try to excite everything and make everything bigger. And that's kind of good. Actually, Jupiter usually doesn't lead you astray. So there is a bit of optimism here where I lean toward, no, this is going to be actually good to push Scorpio forward, to help them get over some humps and clear out some stuff. And that, to me, is really good. Mars is also sextile to the Sun all week and trine to Neptune. So this is very visionary and very faith-filled energy. And so... faith-based energy. And so I actually feel like overall this could be an exceptional week for you. Exceptional week in terms of actually being able to finally get over humps or break through break chains that you've just been stuck in. This is an actual exceptional week for you. There's just that little caveat of, what are you willing to do? And I actually think that this week you'll be willing to do everything that you need to do. Everything that you need to sacrifice, you will. And this is what ends up being very beautiful. So let's get into the decan, shall we? Scorpio ones. So Scorpio ones, your natal suns are conjunct to the South Node, which means finding comfort in yourself, or at least accepting your past, accepting where you've been. Self-acceptance is key. To accept the past is to open up the doors for the future. A long-term conjunction, so you guys won't actually be that impacted this week, except by Mars's involvement, because your natal suns are, especially if you're on the cusp between Scorpio and Libra, your natal suns are... No, forget about Libra. Especially, if you are on the cusp, it's even more extreme. But your natal suns are square to Pluto. Now, with this square between Mars and Pluto and all this energy, it's almost like you guys have been dealing with this for a while, and you will be. You're going through major transits. Your sun is square to Pluto, so you do have that sense of certainty and direction and getting things done, and hopefulness and willfulness that can very much make you a powerhouse, but also make you ruthless. That's over the next 2 years. So that tells me there's a lot of dynamic changes that you guys are going to be pushing for over the next couple of years. There is an opposition to Jupiter this week. Opposition to Jupiter makes you even more pop-off-ish, even more determined. this is actually really the energy of a game changer. It's like a real game changing week, but through your own will, through your own conscious efforts. You are also, your natal suns are also square to Mars, especially as Mars enters Leo toward the end of the week. So you guys are right in the thick of it. You're trying to Saturn, and that really helps you a lot because it means authority, rules, laws, regulations, any establishment is really going to be harmonizing with you, or that you'll be set up to harmonize all these things. So you guys could be breaking through some major chains that have been like convicting you, right? You could be really liberated this week, and that's kind of nice energy. You guys, there's a grand trine between Venus, Saturn, and Mercury, and since you are your natal suns are trine to Saturn, this is really interesting. I put this down. Oh, I think I wrote it down. Yeah. The grand trine between Venus, Saturn, and Mercury will actually impact everybody. It's not just specifically for you guys. What does that do? Mercury is now gone direct, right? It just went direct on the 15th. So what does that do? It kind of gives us a solid sense of harmony, especially when it comes to our relationships, especially with how we communicate with each other. That's nice. So I don't know how that's going to directly impact you. I forget why I wrote this down, but I do have underneath that. Oh, you know why I wrote it down? Because I accidentally wrote down that you guys were trying to Venus, and you're not. You're trying. Your natal suns are trying to Saturn. Your natal suns are sitting in opposition to Mercury, though. That's really interesting. Sun opposite Mercury could just make you sort of babble a lot. It could also make you not be able to communicate correctly, stumbling over your words. Your mind could be foggy, not being able to really think clearly, or you're thinking so much, which is what tends to be. You're thinking so much and so intellectually stimulated that it becomes like a kerfuffle in your brain. So you could have some issues when it comes to, it's like almost like your own little Mercury retrograde this week. Texts not sent, emails failing to go through, flat tires. Just be aware of that. It's going to pass. It will pass very quickly. This week will be it, but it could just frustrate you guys a lot. Scorpio 2s. We have an opposition to Uranus, which has actually been there for a while. Opposition to Uranus is really being overstimulated when it comes to wanting something new, wanting something different, being attracted to something different, changes in your life. This is actually a really dynamic time that can open the doors for a lot of things in your life to end because you're curious about different things. Or if you have been feeling like the things that you appreciate in your life are now boring the crap out of you, this is that influence of Uranus, and it could just because it's going to be there for a while. It could kind of make you do things out of the ordinary, like Uranus opposite the sun. Uranus opposite the sun is almost kind of like its own mini midlife crisis, because when you have your half Uranus return, so when Uranus, very rarely do people live to experience their full Uranus return, but when it's at its midway point, it marks midlife crisis, because midway point between Uranus and Uranus. Uranus and the sun, I feel like, is its own mini version of that, but it only lasts a couple of years, where you kind of feel curious and want to step outside of your norm. It could overstimulate you and over agitate you, but it could also, if you include the people that you love in your life, open all of you to a lot of new and different and exciting things. But do expect that to be that long-term energy that kind of is overstimulating you when it comes to curiosities that are different than your norm, outside of your norm, right? Making you want to be curious about things outside of your norm. It's actually a really brilliant energy, and it can really highly stimulate your mind. So it's a wonderful time to get an education. Going back to college is a wonderful thing. Find a way to use the stimulation in your mind. And then we have a trine to Venus this week. It'll last only this week, but trine to Venus is very harmonious when it comes to your relationships or your finances. This could bring settlements. This could bring more health. Also a feeling of being uplifted. So uplifted in terms of your beauty, being very certain of your sex appeal. So for you guys, the Venus square Chiron will not be as impactful for you. It will not feel as difficult for you this week. In fact, it could actually help you heal a lot of ways where you didn't feel good enough. So it could be very cathartic for you this week. And then we have, and yes, absolutely, you could also start to heal anything that was upsetting or frustrating or agitating your relationship as well. Scorpio 3s. So your natal sun's Scorpio 3s are in opposition to the sun this week. And that is tension in egotism, tension in maybe even self-doubt, a sense of feeling too good for yourself, it's a sense of almost sort of being big-headed or feeling like you're too egotistical, like you have to overprove yourself, or insistence on being seen. All of those things could be extra frustration when Mars and Pluto are already making it difficult enough for you guys. So it's just going to be a little bit more challenging on your ego this week. You do have a trine to Neptune, which is a long-term aspect. And your sextile to Pluto is also a long-term aspect too. This is very visionary, attaching to faith kind of energy. That sense of knowing who you are, knowing where you want to go and how you want to grow, and really connecting to your possibilities and your potential. So that's actually very helpful long-term energy. This week is a trine to Mars. Mars is Sun trine Mars is finding your vitality. You may feel more energized, especially with that opposition to the sun. There is a lot of energy coming in. So this is actually a great time to work on yourself, especially your physical self. It's a great time to encourage your self-esteem instead of discourage it and be extra hard on yourself. You'll have a lot of vitality this week. You use the energy. Wake up earlier. Go do more things. Take longer walks, etc., etc. This will help to use the energy instead of the energy using you, and that could be very, very positive for you this week. And then you guys are going to be in direct opposition to the new moon. So it's your natal suns that are going to be in direct opposition to the new moon. The new moon conjunct the sun. This is all happening in Taurus. When your natal sun is in opposition to a new moon, it could show difficulty with what you really have to confront. Difficulty that you've been having starting something brand new. So it may be a little bit of a hiccup. You might not feel progress or even feel certain or secure. Basically, what it will reveal to you is the things that you're not ready to begin. It's the things that you're not ready to let go of, or the things that you're not ready to start fresh, right? And then you should ask yourself, why? I'm thinking about it. It's on my radar, but what's getting in my way? What's blocking me from being able to begin new? So it's very revealing. So jot it down on your journals if you have to. It's a very revealing energy, and it'll tell you a lot about what is really kind of blocking you inside, like the internal blocks that you may have. It is going to be a super way to start things new. I think with all the other things happening, it could actually supercharge you to be motivated. Once you see that you've sort of blocked the new beginnings, this could be super motivation for you to actually begin and to launch yourself. So you let me know in the comments below how all this energy is impacting you, Scorpio. I love you guys, and please do come across to Born Without Boundaries Tarot and watch your week ahead tarot card reading. I love you, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye, Scorpio.